In this episode, we're going to talk about hiring A players. Now, below in the description, I'm also going to leave a sheet that A to Z covers exactly how to do this, but I want to walk you through each and every step. Now, first and foremost, let's start with who is defined as an A player. For me, this is going to be someone who fits your culture perfectly and also has a lot of experience. So when I speak about experience, they've done the thing before. So if you're looking for a sales rep, they've done sales. If you're looking for a COO, they've been a COO. Like finding someone who's actually had experience is a massive benefit because there's nuances they will understand to the position that someone who's never done it will not, right? I don't like to hire for potential. I like to hire for experience. On the other side, you have culture. Culture could be working hard, telling the truth, performing at a high level, whatever it is that you value in a person in terms of character traits. Now, if you have to choose between a person who has experience or fits your culture, you're going to want to take the culture fit. But in a perfect world, an A player has both. So that's the first thing we want to look for. Now, when we're putting out applications and we're looking for these individuals, two of the places I like the most is LinkedIn. That's actually my favorite place. The backup is Indeed. But I really, really like LinkedIn. We found a lot of high quality talent there. What we try to do to start is put out an application. We try to make it very severe. Some of the key things in the application is making sure it's not abbreviated and it has the term senior in it because it seems to attract higher quality candidates that have more experience, which is exactly what you want. We'll go through that application. And a lot of times we're asking questions to see, one, how much experience they have, but then two, how they think. So anything we can do to test them, we're going to do. So for example, if we're doing a setter, we might say, hey, here's some practice conversations, look them over. All right, now your turn. What would you say to this response? And we can see how they think on the fly so that we don't waste time onboarding them when they don't really have a high level of skill. The key thing is to try to find a 7 who can turn into a 10. We're not trying to find 2s or 3s and turn them into 7s. So we put that on the application and we want to vet very aggressively. One of the other tips on the application, again, I'll put this all in the description below, but one of the other things on the application is we don't want to put how much we're going to pay. I have found it more beneficial to not do that because if someone is immediately looking at the pay, maybe they'll go, oh, that's too low for me. Or they go, oh, that's a great number. I try to just put as many advantages as I can in the application about why it would be a good fit for them. And then I try to discuss the financials on the call. So think step one, create an application. You put it out on LinkedIn or Indeed. Could be other job sites or you could post your email list, etc. But I really like those two sites. We've also had some success in Facebook groups. And then try to weed out as much as humanly possible. So you're only interviewing with the absolute best candidates, the candidates who you feel have prior experience and also will be a good culture fit. Now, once they come to the call, I will almost try to scare them away. Meaning I will try to make the job sound much worse than it is versus much easier than it is, which is a big mistake a lot of owners make. So first, when they come, I will start off by saying, okay, here's what our company is about and here's our values. If you don't fit those values, you're not going to want to work here. If you don't like to work hard, you don't like to work long hours, you don't like to invest in your education, you don't like to do those things, you won't be a fit here. Then go into the next thing by saying, here's what the position is and what it's going to require. Once they have a firm understanding, and as you're doing that, make sure you explain a typical day, right? So you're going to get up, you're going to do this, we're going to have a call at this time, you're going to work all day. Those things are super, super important because if that's not clear, it's going to be very difficult to get those individuals on board later. So you want to make sure you give a very good description of what they can expect. Then I will start to ask them what they've done prior. Now, there's a lot of questions you can ask. What I find is the most beneficial is not asking yes or no questions. Do you know how to do this? Are you competent in this? Have you done that? What I find is most beneficial is when I say, tell me what jobs you've done in the past, and then describe to me what you do in a typical day. Why? Because I already know that if they didn't do the thing that I'm trying to get them to do, it's probably not a good idea to bring them on board and try to train them in that. What I'm looking for is someone who has experience in the thing I'm trying to do so that it's easy to bring them on the team and I don't have to manage them very much or I don't have to do a lot. That's the key thing. So what I'll say if I'm looking for, let's say a sales rep, describe what you sold in the past and walk me through what a typical day looks like. Or if it's a COO, describe your duties in the past and what you would do in a typical day. So that way I get a lot better answer to decide if they're going to be fit for the company than if I just say, do you know how to run ads? Do you know how to do sales calls? Because they're usually going to say yes. And even if they don't know, they'll say something like, yeah, pretty good, right? Which doesn't really tell you much of anything. After that, I will then go into what is the ideal scenario? What's the best company in the world look like? Like, what would that look like for you? Is it they give you days off? Is it bagels? Is it more pay? Is it a chance to move up the ladder? Like, what's most important to you to make sure that their goals align with the company? Because the best way to get the best out of people is align their self-interest with yours, not to try to get them to become someone or not, or go against human nature. After that, then I'll ask them how much they would like to make. Well, I'd like to make 5,000, and you're number 7. Great. Like, maybe you either can save some money or you can use it as a bonus. If they say a number above that, then that's where I'll come in and say, hey, look, totally understand you want that. Here's the reason we can't do that. Here's what we could do. Is that something you could work with or not really? So that I'm not wasting time in negotiations about what they want to make. And I want to make sure that we're somewhat aligned on the same page. Finally, after that, I will then ask them to define what working from home means, because a lot of my employees are remote. And so I want to get them to understand that, hey, just because you're remote doesn't mean you work when you want. It means you're working, you're just from home. Once that's been done, I will then move them to the CEO. Now, if you're the CEO, you don't have to do that last part, but I would highly recommend you get at least 2 sign-offs on every hire, because one wrong hire loses a lot of money and loses a lot of time. It's way more beneficial for a company to just make the right hire the first time than to consistently have to replace people. Now, once they come on board, the first thing we do is give them SOPs. The SOP should be so clear and so detailed that they can go through one by one and know exactly what they have to do. Now, a way an SOP would work is you would have it split into daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. Then you're going to list what the SOP is. So let's say cleaning out the cabinets. You're going to have a video recorded showing them how to do it. And then you're also going to write out the step-by-step instructions so there's no ambiguity. And then underneath that, you'd have links to any resources. So sheets, project management folders, anything like that. The goal being that it's so easy to follow that anyone, if they left on a whim and you had to bring someone back into the company, you could immediately get them up to speed and up to KPI within 48 hours. Once they gone through that, then they're actually into the job. And then from there, I think the key thing to do is you have a set cadence on how often you need to check in with them. So whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, daily, depending on the position, if it's sales related, I'll usually move more to daily check-ins. If it is fulfillment or operations related, it's going to be a little less often. So it might be 3 times a week or once a week or once every 2 weeks, something of that nature. From there, then you need to make sure that you're doing things that make them feel motivated. So praise in public, criticize in private, give them ways to advance or opportunities, make it fun for them, challenge them. Those are all the things people are looking for. I will also say something that's been very helpful for me as I've hired A players is not to try to tell them everything, because if you do, they start to lean on you as a crutch instead of trying to figure it out on their own. And the whole point of hiring help and having a team is so that they can run the machine for you so that you can work on the business and not in the business. So again, we'll leave a sheet down below in the description that's going to lay this out in more detail. But hopefully if you just follow a few of these steps, this will save you a lot of time, effort, and heartache that I had to go through by making a lot of wrong hires. And the key thing I would say is just make sure up front you make it sound scarier than it is versus better, because it's better to bring someone in who thinks it's going to be a worse situation than it is currently, then it's much better. And then they say, oh, I can't handle this.